go ahead and dive into today's training. Today's training is how do I stop overthinking so I can concentrate better. Excuse me, my nose itches. So the purpose of this training is to help all of you understand why overthinking happens, how it negatively impacts our ability to focus, complete tasks, and manage time effectively. I will provide some practical strategies to overcome overthinking so you can take control of your thoughts and so that you can concentrate better. The common struggle with overthinking is that it leads to mental clutter and indecision. People who overthink often get stuck analyzing possibilities, worrying about decisions, and doubting their decisions. This mental paralysis makes it difficult to take action and lead. And it also, the mental paralysis will lead to lack of focus. Overthinking diverts mental energy from the task at hand, making it hard to concentrate on priorities. Reduced productivity. When people overthink, they spend more time in their heads than taking action. So this delays progress and increases procrastination. Overthinking often amplifies worries and anxieties, which further decreases your focus and leads to burnout. So why do we want to stop overthinking? We want to stop overthinking because when we overthink, when we stop overthinking, the mind becomes more clearer, which allows us to focus on what really matters. Breaking free from overthinking allows us to move from analysis to action, making us more efficient in our work and personal tasks. When we stop overthinking, we lower our stress, we promote relaxation, and we prevent burnout, leading to a better emotional health overall. So I know I've shared my story in the past in regards to I was a stressed burnout woman. I was in a very stressful work position and my kids were in a lot of things. So I was always on the go. And during that time in my life, I also found myself overthinking. And when I would overthink, one, I would not want to make decisions because I was just so overloaded with all these other decisions or all this other thinking that I couldn't make a clear decision. Like if someone asked me what was for dinner, not did it just aggravate me and I would get irritable, but I also couldn't make the decision. I also could find myself walking up the stairs and forgetting what I was doing. And so I really started to question if I had the early onset of dementia because I knew I had family members with dementia, and so I started to worry about that. But now that I have learned how to overcome the overthinking, once I decided to put some things in place and I created my anti-anxiety blueprint, I've changed a lot of things. Overthinking is no longer happening. I've shared that I'm a widow. Well, I have to be a problem solver now. I'm the only one that makes decisions and can problem solve anything that's going on in my home. I don't have anybody else to do it, so I have to do it. But also, I'm not forgetting things like I was before. Now, I no longer think that I'm having the early onset of dementia because I never, I walk up the stairs now and I'm like, yeah, I remember what I'm doing. Or when I'm reading, I remember what I'm reading about. And I also am able to, finish tasks at work without it taking me forever. So what is overthinking? Overthinking is our thought process on overdrive. Our thoughts become intrusive. It becomes a habit of excessively analyzing, ruminating, or worrying about situations, events, or decisions beyond what is necessary. It often involves fixating on potential outcomes, problems, or uncertainties in a way that feels overwhelming or paralyzing. I like to say the more we think about something, it becomes our reality. So, for example, I know I've shared this example before, but if you've ever played that cloud game with a kid or with someone and you spend some time looking at the clouds, you ask, what does everybody see? No one may say anything for a little while, but then all of a sudden, one person says, oh, I see an elephant. Now everybody sees the elephant because our brain now has become focused on what someone has said. So the more we think about it, the more it becomes our reality. What does overthinking look like? Overthinking looks like repeatedly going over the same situation or concern in your mind without reaching a resolution. So example is ruminating about a conversation you had earlier. Question if you said the right thing or how others might have perceived you. It's over analyzing every detail of a situation to the point where it becomes difficult to make decisions or take action. Examples of this is spending hours researching a simple purchase because you're afraid of making the wrong choice. Mentally revisiting past events, often focusing on what could have gone wrong or how things might have been different. Example is continually replaying in an argument, thinking about what you could have said or done differently. Worrying excessively about potential future outcomes, even those that are unlikely or beyond our control. So a lot of times we do spend time thinking about things, and when we break it down, it's nothing we can control. For example, a recent friend of mine, her niece got married, and it was right after one of the last hurricanes, not this current hurricane, and their area, their venue, had no electricity. Well, again, it was beyond their control. And so if she would have spent all these times thinking about these worst case scenarios, then she may not have enjoyed the moment of getting married. And so a lot of times we need to really recognize if it's something we can control or not control. Overthinking affects our sleep. Sometimes people will lie awake at night unable to stop their mind from racing or worrying about the what ifs. We become an overplanner or we procrastinate. So trying to account for every little possible outcome before taking action leads to either endless planning or avoiding the decision altogether. So example, delaying sending an email because you want to make sure that every word is perfect or the punctuation is just perfect. And then this will create a delay in sending it, or even maybe not sending it at all. Overthinking affects our concentration because we are so overwhelmed, and our brain becomes kind of what we call cognitive overload. The excessive thoughts lead to this cognitive overload, a state in which the brain becomes overburdened by too much information, making it difficult to focus on tasks at hand. So I kind of relate this to like a computer with too many tabs open. With too many tabs, our computer runs slow. And that's the same thing with our brain. When it has too many tabs open, or when we are cognitively overloaded with all this other information that may not be needed at this moment, it makes it hard for us to focus on what is happening right now. The other ways that overthinking affects concentration is that when we overthink, our attention is scattered across multiple thoughts, worries, and scenarios, making it hard to concentrate on one single task. Instead of focusing on what we need to do, our mind is distracted by all the what ifs or past events. So example, we sit down to write a report, and instead of concentrating, our mind drifts to thoughts about a conversation that we had earlier in the day or worries about an upcoming meeting. Overthinking can lead to mental fatigue. It drains our mental energy, leaving us mentally exhausted. constantly processing numerous thoughts, tasks, will play a toll on our cognitive resources, making it harder to focus or think clearly. Overthinking increases stress and anxiety, which can impair our ability to concentrate. When our stress hormones like cortisol is elevated, then it becomes harder to maintain focus and stay present in the moment. Example is you're trying to read or study, but anxiety from overthinking makes it impossible to absorb that information. I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you when you've read a book and you get to the end of the chapter and you're like, what did I just read? Well, that's because maybe you have had this increased stress level and it is now hard to focus. Or if you're overthinking, you're thinking about all these other things, you're not able to focus on what you were reading. And so then your brain doesn't absorb it. And so then now you have to reread it. So I don't know how many times I spent, my time management was definitely affected by overthinking because I spent more hours in my day repeating doing a task, especially when it came to like work reports. I had to read it several times to concentrate because I wasn't focused when I first read it. Overthinking can lead to analysis paralysis, where we get stuck in the cycle of thinking and rethinking a decision or task, making it impossible to take action or make progress. Example is that we spend too much time overanalyzing how to start a project, that we actually struggle to get it even started, or it takes us forever to get started, so then we may be rushed to get it done by a deadline. Overthinking bombards the brain with excessive information. This overwhelms our working memory, which is part of the brain that is responsible for temporarily holding information. So this causes a cognitive bottleneck. So we lose the ability to process new information or focus effectively. When our brain is overloaded with thoughts, our mental clarity decreases. So simple tasks feel more complex. We may struggle to retain information or remember important details. And this is where frustration can come in play too. So sometimes with, stress and anxiety, some things that sometimes we see is irritability. And that irritability can sometimes be totally related to this decreased mental clarity. So let's go ahead and take a look at some ways to stop overthinking. Now, inside the Thrive Beyond Anxiety program, I give you an access to my anti-anxiety blueprint, which has science-backed techniques that I use to help you overcome overthinking. I spend a good couple weeks teaching you this process and then providing you downloadable worksheets that help you take a look at how do you overcome overthinking. And one way to do this is using mindfulness. And I know a lot of times people are talking a lot about mindfulness, and I've heard other people on different Facebook groups saying, this is like voodoo or, it's the new fad. Well, no, mindfulness has, it is science-backed, it is research-based, that it is showing us that when we are overthinking, we are not focused on the moment. And so mindfulness gets us in that here and the now so that we can be more present and more focused in that moment. So mindfulness, we can do some deep breathing. I like the box breathing. It is hold for 4, or breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. Some other deep breathing techniques is, we can use our hand and we can go up and down each finger, breathing in as we go up and breathing out as we go down. The one thing about that technique is that if you are using your hand and doing this, which a lot of people would not want to do in public because it just looks weird, that perception. But with that one, we are getting grounded because we can see our hand, we feel our fingertip going up and down. And so it is a grounding technique as well. But you can use grounding techniques as simple as, using your senses to identify, what can you see, what can you hear, what can you smell at that moment. And those will get you grounded in that moment because you become more focused on what is happening in that current moment. And inside the Thrive Beyond Anxiety, I also invite breath specialists to join us and help us with breath work so that we can learn different techniques to help us with the breath work. We can also break tasks into smaller steps so that we can feel, less overwhelmed. We can make a list of tasks that have to be done and completed, which can help us shift our mind from all the overthinking so that we focus on what needs to be done. We can learn how to challenge negative, helpful thoughts. And I do a lot of this in the coaching program because I want to help you, challenge those thoughts, identify if there's any proof to the current thought that you're having and challenge it and get rid of it, and help you replace the what ifs with statements of what can I do now. So instead of saying what if this happens, we ask ourselves what can I do now. So it focuses again more on that here and the now. We also want to take time to focus on what we can control and what we can't control. One simple technique with this is taking a piece of notebook paper, writing a line down the center, things that we can control on one side, things we can't control on the other side, ripping it in half, throwing it away, getting rid of the what you can't control. So many times we are focused on what we can't control that we again get us out of that moment. We can only control our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. We can't control a lot of the other things. Also, using time management techniques like time blocking can help us. And some other quick, ways to kind of reset the mind can involve stretching, taking a quick walk. Those are all kind of, middle of the day exercises that you can do to help reset your mind. And you want to reduce your distractions because if you're distracted by notifications, either email, phone, text, social media, those can then get you out of that moment. And then, you're distracted and then your thoughts start to go again. So it can be a vicious cycle. And so we want to be able to learn how to, stop that overthinking. I do another activity where I tell my clients to give your brain permission to overthink, and you write all the things that you're overthinking only at a certain time of the day and only for a certain amount of time so that you are in more control of what's happening during those thought processes. And you start to get really more in tune to what you are overthinking and how you can stop it. So if this is relating to you, then I encourage you to message me. We can set up a coffee chat. We can set up a no pressure consult call where I can hear about your concerns. I can, give you some suggestions of what you can try, and we can look to see if it makes sense for us to work together. So again, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this, either in the replay or now. You are doing the first step in acknowledging that you are struggling with overthinking. You are investing some time to listen to this. So again, thank you. And take a look on Sunday for the poll because next week's training will be on something else that you guys would like to learn about. So take care and have a wonderful week.